since we are asking questions, and Daphne started by asking you to raise your hand, I'm going to do the same. Raise your left hand if you've ever thought about work every single day of your adult life. Okay, raise your right hand if you've ever thought about worship at least once every working week throughout your adult life. Okay, raise both your hands if you've thought about worship while at work or during your work. Well, like most things in life, there are no right answers, but these are a few good questions to keep in mind, at least for the next 18 minutes. When I was growing up, worship was about dinner table prayers and the rushed morning salutation. It was the image of my grandmother kissing her rosary once she had completed her 108 chants. Worship was the look in my dad's eyes when he hung up his police uniform, and we just heard a police officer, after a long, tiring assignment of serving the community. His eyes communicated a sharp kindness and were always without fear and without hate. Worship was in his gait when he walked into the door each evening. He carried himself with a very proud swagger that comes from a job well done and commitments well delivered. That swagger and the penetrating clarity of his eyes permeated deep into us as children, and we knew that his job was a very sacred one. It was a very sacred one, but today I understand that all jobs are very sacred. Worship was also inherent in my mother humming to herself as she packed 3 lunch boxes for school every morning. The worship she brought to those lunch boxes translated to us as scraps of tiny messages we found in the lunch boxes. Messages of hope, messages of bonding, and messages of resilience that she threw in there every day. Well, then, when the world had not been 3Gized, those daily dose of life lessons, self-crafted, unfortunately, did not get any Facebook likes or Twitter hates. They did, however, serve as a source of nourishment for our growing hearts. And they were a form of daily worship for a mother's soul. It was an early and a very permanent lesson that the altar of familial ties is a place of worship that will always, always be watching for you. That is where you find the bowl with a colorful potpourri. This potpourri contains worship in unique forms and shapes. The broken-toothed smile of a sibling, the gooey remains of the cake mixture from your birthday celebrations, or the sand grains from your first sandcastle. Worship most of all, and the deepest of all, the keenest of all, as well as the unkindest of all, was what I felt deep in the chambers of my heart, the innermost recesses of my womb, and the unformed curves of my breast. I was only 13 when I became versed in the meaning of pure affection. It meant to me the fluttering in my stomach when I sang a lullaby for my newborn baby brother. The magic of unadulterated maternal inclination for a life I had not given birth to. Yet, he will always remain my firstborn. I continued to experience the sheer elation of that role throughout his growing years. I played my role, that of a sibling, sometimes a mother, with both pride, some elan, and a little bit of fragility. I realize today that it helped me discover many hidden corners of my heart until that fateful day. Until that fateful day when an ugly fury stormed through his young and eager heart and in a single digital movement took him away from us. No warnings and no emergency alerts. He was gone forever. He succumbed to the attack, and I succumbed to inertia. A year of lassitude followed. A year that forever will be known in my life journal as a milestone year. Asymptomatic, yet diseased. An utter inability to forget had taken over my existence. Well, as we all know, we all have an ability to submit to amnesia when we want to. It is never easy to stop living. I discovered worship in a new avatar. Makeovers inspired, like the rest of the world, this new form of worship started reaching out to me. Burrowing deep within the sinews of my muscle memory, I extracted moments. I extracted moments that had been the most grounding and the most comforting moments throughout my life. I started looking for and creating similar moments in my daily current existence. Something resonated. I succumbed. Well, fast forward to me today. I stand here anchored strong. What makes me believe, and how can I publicly declare that my typical corporate job with inane business presentations, superfluous deadlines, and a self-created sense of swirl is anything but the opposite of worship? Predictable 6 annual holidays, some half-hearted attempts to vacation in the hills and the valleys, a few sincere and a few not so sincere, I promise you, attempts to forming and storming teams, celebrations of company milestones, walking the typical tightrope as a manager, trying one's level best to be an organizational ambassador. All riveting, transformational stuff that work in a corporation can consist of. How can I stand here today? And how do I believe about work as worship and worship as the alternate pursuit of happiness? Because I am. Because I am, and I easily could have not been. I could have been in the darkness of my tunnel groping. But 2 decades after that storm hit my life, I stand here anchored strong. I stand here anchored strong not because I submitted to any theory of mindfulness, not because I went into an intense course of meditation, not because I went into a self-reflection retreat, and not because I walked into the Himalayas to find myself. I stand here anchored strong because I did what each one of us does every single day. I pursued with total immersion my daily work. I'm here to share that this thing we call work, sometimes a job, maybe a career, often dismissed as the daily grind, is actually a way of life that can be extremely transformational. It can be extremely transformational, but we focus too much. We focus too much on wanting to create a legacy. If we can only concentrate on the joyous steps we are taking on our daily path, our footsteps are leaving behind their impressions on the sands of time, because that is exactly what they are meant to do. They have no other choice. You make the choice on how you engage with your work. I made mine. I made mine when I went about coaching the 20 to 25-year-old colleagues at work. My immersion in coaching those colleagues at work was akin to making a meaningful and continued contribution to the life of a young, growing adult I had lost to fate many years ago. Within the routine work tasks of writing an email or delivering a training, I found the release to my creative urge to write and my proven skills to teach. They became my alternates. They became my alternates to the poems I could not pen and the classes I could not teach. Every client problem and every business paradigm that I worked on, I was working with my hands and my mind, but through that, earning for myself the ability to rekindle my own life beats. The art of making waves on the surface of the ocean is one of the most repetitive, yet one of the most harmonious events of nature. just like our daily work. When my daughter was younger, that is, before she became a teenager, she devotedly improvised birthday cards for me. Once she was done with the ribbons and the colors and the smudgy drawings, she would always apply one final addition. Pulling open her study drawer, she extracted a precious belonging. It could be a pencil shaving, an eraser, a pen refill, sometimes a half-empty juice carton, or maybe a Lego block. Picking one, she would carefully paste it at the back of the card she had created with colorful, shiny tape. At midnight, she would tiptoe into my room, and with a sloppy kiss and a very tight hug, she would hand over the card she had constructed. I still remember vividly. She stood there each time with sheer worship for her art and devotion to what she had created. She stood there each time with sheer worship for her art and devotion to what she had created. Handing the card over to me, she said, "Mom, the card is for your birthday, and this year's special offer is," and she would point to that gift she had clumsily pasted at the back of the card. We all like special offers. My offer for you in sharing my journey today is the gift of daily existence. What you may have completely dismissed thus far is the magnitude that strives to be unearthed in the small waves you ride every day. Life and purpose happen inside of work, not outside of it. Look at the clouds. Look at the clouds. They converge to rain showers. That is the work assigned to them by nature. Yet, what a dance they make of it. Remember, Buddha ran away. Buddha ran away to find enlightenment and the meaning of worship away from work. And what did he conclude? He concluded that there is no work that is mundane. It is the state of mind and body with which we perform it that makes it so. The pleasure of here and now is pure joy. I like to call it the work practitioner's worship. At this point, I would like to perform for you one of my poems that I have dedicated to us work practitioners. I grew up watching my grandfather and my father and my mother, and I saw a simple dedication to the routine, a devotion that made the daily chores, the work, seem sublime. Why was there more contentment? Why was it that every task they accomplished left them with pride, like a standing ovation to their own self? Almost like nature. Each move, each trick attached to a larger purpose. Each move, each trick attached to a larger purpose. Today, the work is differentiated from the meaning. The work is related to the economics. The work is the necessary evil. And then there is that special something. And then there is that special something. Lives are defined by a well-written agenda, yet drifting almost rudderless. Lives are defined by a well-written agenda, yet drifting almost rudderless. Each of us navigating through meandering madness, the daily dose of information, rules, techniques, and opinions, watching talks, podcasts, and webinars on happiness, yet, and because of that, losing our own latitude to gravitate happiness into our work. An entire generation humming about creative and personal purpose, yet there is a complete breakdown of roots. Should we check and adjust? Or is it okay to let the path run its course? Should we check and adjust, or is it okay to let the path run its course? Can we please try to make it simple again? At least tell ourselves that work is not about the material only. It is about people. It is about learning. It is about excellence. It is about human connection, and it is about freedom. Mundane day-to-day work, even mundane day-to-day work, has multiple layers of joy. Mundane day-to-day work has multiple layers of joy, and it is okay if you are not someone with a special and publicly stated purpose. Carving purpose along the way really is okay. Life and purpose happen inside of work, not outside of it. Find ways to unravel the daily magic at work. Remember, it takes guts to plow through a job. And most importantly, it is still very, very meaningful to run a family. At this point, I would like to leave you with the thoughts from a renowned philosopher, saint, and religious innovator, Guru Nanak. He did not believe in celibacy and renunciation, and he believed that you should not be bailing out of the duties of a work practitioner or a householder while pursuing spiritual enlightenment. Guru Nanak introduced this concept, the alternate approach to nirvana, in the 16th century. Well, what if he were to tweet his philosophy in today's world? This is probably what his tweets would say. Work and worship are not mutually exclusive to each other. And of course, like everything else, there would be a conditions applied clause, which would probably go on the lines of making work and worship jive well together does not come with a standard operating procedure. It is up to you. Are you willing to be a full-time work practitioner? It's not a fancy job title, but it is easy. You can start today. There is no waiting time, and I promise, no additional return costs attached to it. Let us rejuvenate the swagger in our daily work.